Most people think the worst things happen all at once. A scream, a broken window, a masked face at the door. But real fear is quieter than that. It starts with something small, a car parked too close to your house, a ride request in the middle of nowhere, a muddy footprint that shouldn't exist. Little things, tiny things, the kind of things you can explain away, right up until you can't. And by the time you realize something is wrong, it's already inside with you. Tonight, I'm going to tell you 3 stories, 3 nights, 3 ordinary people, and 3 moments where normal life cracked open, and something dark was already waiting on the other side. So lock your doors, turn the lights down, and listen carefully. Because the scariest part of these stories is how easily they could happen to anyone. Evan Mercer worked nights at a warehouse outside Columbus, Ohio. His life ran backward. He woke up when most people were eating dinner. He drove to work when neighborhoods were going quiet. And by the time he came home, the world looked abandoned. He liked it that way. No traffic, no noise, no neighbors trying to chat. Just darkness, routine, and silence. Even on his days off, Evan kept the same schedule. Sleep during the day, alive at night. It was easier on his body. At least, that's what he told himself. One Thursday morning, Evan got off work at 4 a.m. By 4:15, he was turning onto a street. Everything looked dead. No headlights, no movement, no sound but the low hum of his engine. And then he saw it. A black sedan, old, unremarkable, parked right beside his driveway. Not in front of a neighbor's house, not farther down the curb, right beside his driveway. Evan slowed as he passed it. Dark tinted windows, no lights on, no engine noise. He couldn't see a thing inside. He pulled into his garage, killed the engine, and sat there for a second with both hands still on the wheel. Something about it felt deliberate. His neighborhood wasn't packed tight, the houses were spaced out. If someone was visiting a neighbor, there were easier, more logical places to park. So why there? Why right outside his house? Still, nothing had happened, so Evan told himself not to be paranoid. He went inside, made some food, locked up, checked once through the front window. About an hour later, the car was gone. That should have been the end of it. But the next night, after another long shift, Evan turned onto a street, and the same car was back. Same black sedan, same spot, same dead silence. That's when the feeling changed. The first night felt strange. The second night felt personal. This time, Evan rolled slowly past it, staring at the windows, trying to catch even the outline of a face. Nothing. He parked in the garage, but instead of going straight inside, he stepped back out and walked down the driveway. The air was cold, still, too still. As he got closer, he thought he saw something shift behind the tinted driver's side glass. Just a flicker, a movement so slight he almost convinced himself it was a reflection. But it was enough. Enough to make his stomach drop. He stopped about 10 feet away, not close enough to touch the car, not stupid enough to test whether someone was actually inside. He stood there, staring, waiting. Nothing moved again. Eventually, Evan took out his phone and snapped a picture of the plate, just in case. He went inside, locked the door, checked the windows twice, and stayed awake longer than usual. By morning, the sedan was gone again. Still, Evan did what people always do when something terrible is only beginning. He rationalized it. Maybe some creep, maybe some bored guy smoking in his car, maybe somebody lost. He slept all day, woke up around 6:30 that evening, and realized he had the night off. So he did what he usually did to kill time. He went for a walk around the neighborhood. When he left, the curb beside his driveway was empty. When he came back an hour later, the black sedan was parked there again. Exact same spot. That was the moment it stopped feeling like coincidence. Evan had just walked the entire neighborhood. There were barely any cars out, no parties, no guests, no reason for anyone to keep parking there over and over again. This time, he walked straight to it. No hesitation, no distance. He stepped up to the driver's side, cupped his hands around his face, and pressed close to the glass to kill the glare. The car was empty. No driver, no passenger, no bags, no cigarette smoke, nothing. And somehow, that felt even worse. Because now, there was a different question. If no one was in the car, then where were they? Evan went back inside, unsettled enough now that his hands wouldn't stay still. He headed to his bedroom and grabbed his phone from the charger. That's when he saw the notification. Motion detected. His security app. He had a camera on the front porch and a few cameras inside the house. Nothing fancy, just enough to feel smart. He opened the app. There was a saved clip. 60 seconds. He hit play. For almost the entire video, nothing happened. Just his bedroom. Still, quiet, empty. Evan almost exhaled. Maybe it was a glitch. Then, in the last few seconds, something moved across the bottom of the frame. Fast. Too fast to fully see. Just part of a head, a shoulder, a blur of human shape passing low through the room. Evan stopped breathing. The footage was from the bedroom he was standing in. For a second, the entire world collapsed into one thought. Someone had been in the room with him. Maybe they still were. The silence around him turned violent. Every dark corner looked occupied. Every shadow felt alive. Evan slowly turned in place, scanning the room. Closet, curtains, under the bed, the space behind the door. Nothing. But the panic was already rising. He stepped into the hallway, and the moment he did, he heard movement behind him. Not imagined movement, not maybe. Real movement. A shift. Then footsteps. Fast. Closing in. Evan ran. No thought, no plan, pure survival. He bolted for the stairs, nearly slipped, caught himself, and flew toward the front door. Behind him, the footsteps got louder. Closer. He yanked the door open and sprinted into the darkness beside his house, into the woods, branches slashing at his arms, wet leaves tearing beneath his shoes. He didn't look back. He just ran until he couldn't hear anything except his own body trying not to die. Then he called 911. When deputies arrived, the black sedan was gone, but Evan still had the photo of the plate. That single decision may have saved his life. 3 hours later, police found the driver. His name was Caleb Voss, mid-20s, unemployed, mentally unstable, and according to deputies, obsessed. He didn't know Evan personally. That was the part that sickened everyone. There was no history, no breakup, no argument, no direct connection. He had just chosen him. Police found dozens of photos of Evan's house on Caleb's phone. Not just the exterior, photos through the windows. Evan in his living room. Evan eating dinner. Evan asleep on the couch with the TV on. Pictures taken from outside in the dark. Hidden. Patient. There were notes, too. Times Evan left for work. Times he came home. Patterns. Dates. 2 full weeks of surveillance. And the worst part? No one could explain exactly how Caleb got into the house without clearly triggering every camera. Which meant one thing no one wanted to say out loud. He may have done it before. He may have spent days, maybe longer, learning the blind spots, learning the layout, learning Evan. That bedroom clip? It may not have been his first mistake, just the first one Evan caught. Caleb went away for a long time, but for Evan, the story didn't end there, because prison doesn't erase memory. And once you've seen proof that a stranger stood inside your room in the dark while you had no idea, you never really feel alone again. Not in a good way. Not ever. 4 years ago, Marcus Reed was driving nights for Uber outside Portland. Storm nights were usually pointless. The worse the weather got, the fewer people went out. And the fewer people went out, the longer Marcus sat alone in parking lots, watching rain smear the windshield and waiting for the app to make a sound. That night was brutal. Rain hammered so hard against the roof it sounded like gravel. Wind bent the trees. The roads looked abandoned. Marcus spent the first hour parked near a gas station, half listening to music, half watching nonsense on his phone. Then he grabbed food from a drive-thru and kept waiting. Eventually, a ride request came in. He looked at the details and almost laughed. Pickup, 25 minutes away. Drop-off, another 20 minutes beyond that. Which meant one thing. There were no other drivers working. Marcus hesitated, then accepted. Money was money. At first, the drive just felt long. Then, it started to feel wrong. The GPS led him farther and farther out of town, away from neighborhoods, away from streetlights, away from anything familiar. Soon there was nothing but black road, soaked trees, and rain so heavy it erased depth. He kept driving. 35 minutes later, he reached the pickup point, and it made no sense. It wasn't a house, wasn't a business, wasn't even a gas station. It was just the corner of 2 back roads in the middle of nowhere. No porch lights, no parked cars, no person waiting under an umbrella. Nothing. Marcus marked himself as arrived and sat there staring through the rain. He reached for his phone to message the rider. That's when he saw movement in the side mirror. A man was coming up behind the car. Marcus flinched. He had no idea where the guy had come from. 1 second the road was empty. The next, this man was there, walking straight toward the vehicle through the rain, like he had been dropped out of the dark. The back door opened. He got in. Marcus turned halfway in his seat. The guy was drenched, hair soaked flat, water dripping from his jacket onto the upholstery. But it wasn't the water that unsettled Marcus. It was the expression. The man looked angry. Not loud, not drunk. Just hard, cold, like he'd already decided something. Marcus cleared his throat. "You, Daniel?" The man looked at him, then said Marcus's first name. That was enough to confirm the ride. Marcus started driving. At first, neither of them spoke, but the silence inside that car was different from normal silence. It felt tight, crowded. The passenger sat in the exact center of the back seat, not behind Marcus, not by a window, dead center. So every time Marcus checked the rearview mirror, he was there, watching, not staring wildly, not acting crazy, just present, still, like a problem waiting to happen. Marcus tried to keep things casual. Rough night to be out in this weather. No response. A minute later, he tried again. What were you doing all the way out there? This time, Daniel looked up into the mirror. For a second, Marcus thought he might answer. Instead, Daniel looked away. Nothing. That silence said more than words could have. Marcus felt it then, a shift inside himself. That animal instinct, the one that says you are trapped in a small space with the wrong person. Rain slammed the windshield, wipers thrashed back and forth. The road ahead was empty for miles. And behind Marcus, Daniel kept moving just enough to stay impossible to read. Then suddenly, Daniel spoke. "Drop me off here." Marcus blinked. They were nowhere near the destination. He glanced at the map, then back at the road. "Here? Drop me off here." No hesitation this time. No softness. It wasn't a request. Marcus pulled over. He didn't argue, didn't ask questions, didn't want to push whatever unstable thing was happening in the back seat. Daniel leaned forward slightly, not enough to attack, just enough to make Marcus's pulse jump. Then Daniel looked down at the phone mounted near the center console. The Uber app was still open. The trip data was right there. Pickup, account, traceable route. Daniel's expression changed, only a little, but Marcus saw it. A realization, fast, sharp, ugly. And in that moment, Marcus understood something terrifying. Whatever Daniel had been thinking about doing, he had just remembered it would lead straight back to him. The app knew who he was. The ride request tied him to the car. If Marcus disappeared, Daniel wouldn't stay invisible for long. That was the only reason Marcus believes he survived. So he made a split-second choice. He softened his voice. Calm, easy, non-threatening. "Hey, don't worry about it," Marcus said. "I'll cancel it on my end. You won't get charged." What he was really saying was, "You don't need to hurt me. There's no problem here. You can leave." Daniel stared at him, just stared. Cold eyes, no expression. Then finally, he opened the door and stepped out into the storm. The rain swallowed him almost immediately. Marcus didn't wait. The second the door shut, he drove, fast. Faster than he should have on roads like that. He didn't call the police right away because he didn't know what he would even say. A passenger made me nervous. A guy in the rain looked wrong. It sounded ridiculous. But when he got home, the feeling still hadn't left his body, so he reported it anyway, just in case. A few days later, Marcus got a call from detectives. A woman named Jenna Cole had gone missing that same night. Her last known location was near Forest Roads, not far from where Marcus picked Daniel up. Police wanted every detail. How tall was he? What was he wearing? Did he smell like anything? Did he say anything else? Did he have blood on him? Mud? Scratches? Marcus told them everything he could remember. But the storm had done what storms do. It erased. Tracks washed away, scent gone, any trace outside destroyed. Jenna Cole was never found, and neither was Daniel Hale, if that was even his real name. As far as Marcus knows, he may have been the last person to see that man alive, or the last person that man decided not to kill. And that's the thought that stayed with him. Not just that he drove a possible killer through the dark, but that survival may have come down to one tiny thing. A phone screen. One visible app. One reminder that monsters are sometimes smart enough to stop, only when they realize they can be caught. If Daniel had forgotten that for 10 more seconds, Marcus believes he would have vanished into that storm too, and nobody would have known why. Rachel Boone lived alone in a rural part of Kentucky, where houses were separated by long driveways, trees, and silence. The kind of place people call peaceful, until night falls. It had been raining for days. By the time Rachel got off work one evening, she was exhausted, wet, cold, and completely done with the world. She drove 30 minutes home through sheets of rain, wipers barely keeping up, tires sliding now and then through flooded patches of road. When she turned onto her driveway, she noticed something odd. Another set of tire tracks. Fresh. The mud was churned up in a pattern that didn't belong to her car. Someone else had driven down to the house earlier. Rachel slowed. At first, it didn't seem serious. Maybe a delivery truck. Maybe somebody turning around. Maybe a utility worker. But when she parked and checked the porch, there was nothing. No package, no note, no door tag. Just rain. The tracks looked like a vehicle had pulled down close to the house, then turned around and left. Weird, but not enough to call anyone over. She went inside, peeled off her soaked clothes, changed, made something quick to eat, and settled into the living room. Around 7:30, she heard a knock. Just one. Soft. So soft, she wasn't even sure it was real. With the rain and wind beating against the house, it could have been anything. Still, she got up and crossed to the front door. When she opened it, cold rain slapped across the porch. No one there. She looked left, right. Nothing. Just darkness and wet air. Rachel shut the door and locked it. The whole thing felt stupid, like she was spooking herself over weather. She went back to the couch, turned on a show, and tried to let it go. An hour later, she stood up to use the bathroom. That's when she saw it, a muddy smear on the white tile behind the couch. She stopped. It wasn't huge, just enough to matter, because Rachel knew one thing for sure. It wasn't hers. She always took her muddy boots off by the door. Always. And somehow, she hadn't noticed the mark earlier. She crouched down and stared at it. A thought moved slowly into her head. What if somebody else tracked it in? She wiped it up with a rag, but after that, nothing in the house felt right anymore. Back on the couch, she couldn't relax. The TV kept playing, but she wasn't watching it. Every few seconds, she glanced over her shoulder. Her couch faced the room in a way that left most of the first floor behind her. Kitchen, hallway, dining area, little pockets of darkness just outside direct sight. She started feeling watched. Not movie scared, not silly scared. That deeper kind. The kind where your body reacts before your brain is ready to admit why. Eventually, it got so bad she shut the TV off and went upstairs to her bedroom. At least there, she could sit with her back against a wall. The room felt smaller, safer. She turned on the bedroom TV and tried to calm down. For 20 minutes, it almost worked. Then she heard something outside her bedroom door. A dull sound. A thump. Then silence. Rachel sat up slowly. She stared at the door. Nothing else came. She got out of bed, walked over, and pressed her ear against the wood. No voices, no footsteps, no breathing. She told herself she had to check, had to prove to herself she wasn't losing it. So she opened the door. The upstairs hallway was empty, dark, quiet, still. There was only one other room up there besides her bedroom, a spare room she used as a home office and place for books. Rachel stepped into the hall and started toward it. Then downstairs, the TV exploded to life, loud. The exact show she'd been watching earlier suddenly blasted through the house. Rachel froze. Her body went cold all at once. Not fear creeping in, fear arriving. Instantly, completely. She ran, down the hall, down the stairs. The first floor was dark except for the flickering TV in the living room, filling the house with flashing light and broken sound. Rachel turned the corner expecting to see someone there. No one. The room was empty. She moved closer, shaking now, scanning every angle. Then she reached behind the screen and shut it off manually, because the remote wasn't there. That's when everything clicked. The knock, the tire tracks, the muddy smear, the sound outside her bedroom. Somebody had been inside the house. Not maybe, inside. Rachel went into the kitchen and grabbed the biggest knife she could find. Looking back, she knows that was the wrong move. But terror doesn't make people smart. It makes them primitive. She started checking rooms downstairs one by one. Laundry room, pantry, bathroom, closets. Nothing. No movement. No sound. No intruder stepping out of the dark. And for one dangerous second, Rachel almost convinced herself it had all been a chain of bad coincidences. Then she went back upstairs. She approached the spare room. The door was partly open. She pushed it wider. At first, it looked normal. Desk, shelves, closet. Then she saw something on the floor beside the closet door. The downstairs TV remote, just lying there. Rachel felt all the blood leave her face. She didn't scream, didn't investigate, didn't take another step. She backed away, turned, and ran. Downstairs, out the front door, into the rain. Only once she was outside did she call 911. Police arrived fast. This time, Rachel didn't care if she sounded crazy. She told them everything. The tracks, the knock, the mud, the TV, the remote. Officers searched the house, and this time they found it. A broken window lock downstairs. Subtle, easy to miss, but forced. Someone had absolutely gotten inside. The working theory was simple. Whoever it was came by earlier while Rachel was still at work. That explained the tire tracks. Maybe they knocked first to see if anyone was home. When no one answered, they left. Then later, they came back and got in. And once inside, they stayed. Quiet, patient, moving through the house while Rachel sat in the living room, completely unaware. At some point, when she went upstairs, they must have taken the TV remote with them. And when she got too close to the spare room, they turned the downstairs television back on to distract her. A diversion. Noise downstairs, panic, confusion. Just enough time to escape. Or maybe just enough time to reposition. That possibility haunted Rachel more than anything, because police never found the intruder. No one was caught. Nothing was stolen. No jewelry gone. No electronics missing. No money touched. Which meant robbery may never have been the point. And if theft wasn't the reason, then what was? That question stayed with Rachel. It still does. Because objects can be replaced. But intent? Intent is worse. Intent lingers. And there's something uniquely horrifying about knowing a stranger was inside your home, moving from room to room in silence, staying hidden not because they had to, but because they wanted to. 3 people, 3 ordinary nights, and 3 moments when something harmless turned into something unforgettable. A car parked outside too many times. A passenger who appeared out of nowhere. A noise in the house that should have had no source. That's how fear usually begins. Not with certainty, with doubt. Because the dark doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just waits for you to notice. And sometimes, by the time you do, it's already much too close. So before you go to sleep tonight, maybe check the locks one more time. Look out at the street. Glance at the back seat. Listen to the hallway outside your room. And if something feels wrong, don't ignore it. Because instinct has a language, and sometimes it's the only warning you get.